Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Millie and I'm your host today here for Pretectum. I am sure you're all here because you understand a fundamental data challenge of most modern businesses. That challenge is, of course, adequately managing customer data records that are often scattered across countless systems in the business. This approach to customer data management creates data silos, frustrates employees and customers alike, and ultimately compromises customer profile accuracy. This set of problems makes it incredibly difficult to deliver a consistent, high-quality customer experience. Today, we're going to dive into how Customer Master Data Management, or CMDM, can solve these problems. We'll show you how to move from a fragmented view of your customers to a single, accurate source of truth that drives better decisions, enhances customer relationships, and ensures compliance. During the session, please be sure to post your questions in the Q&A. If we can't cover them directly in this session, then we will reach out to you personally in a follow-up. So, let's get started. I'm excited to introduce Clinton Jones to share how Pretectum CMDM can help you unlock the true value of your customer data. Over to you, Clinton.
Thank you, and welcome to you for joining me in this Pretectum Fall 2025 webinar, in which we'll be talking about how you can make your customer data better. Today I'll be discussing the critical role of master data management profiles in the context of customers and in achieving a single accurate view of your customers, and then I'll follow that up with a demonstration of some core platform functionality from Pretectum. The challenge for most businesses is fragmented customer views, and this diagram tries to illustrate this. Customer information is often found in multiple, likely disconnected systems, and these systems are going to be things like CRM, ERP, CDPs, and the like. And those may house sales, marketing, service, even billing data. And in aggregate, of course, they represent your organization's understanding of the customer. But it can be a bit of jumbled mess, particularly when the data has no particular authority. So which data is the latest? which records should you be reliant on. This siloed approach to data management, of course, then leads to significant problems, such as inaccurate insights when you start using analytics on them, and you could land up with duplicates and inconsistent data. And that means ultimately poor potential customer experiences and, of course, frustration for your staff. And this will result in a fragmented data landscape, which also creates significant compliance risks and will make it difficult to track where the data is going and who is accessing it. And then, of course, whether you have explicit consent and are maintaining data privacy obligations across all your systems. So the solution to this fragmentation is to establish a single source of truth. And this is exactly what the Pretectum CMDM is designed to do. The platform helps you to consolidate all your customer data into one central intelligent platform. And then once the data is consolidated, you can then automatically cleanse it and validate it and ensure accuracy and consistency. This trusted data can then be connected and distributed back to your operational teams and systems in near real time. And the platform also helps you to effortlessly comply with privacy regulations by centralizing consent and data governance. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time and we've got quite a lot of features, but I'm not going to show everything today. So I'll log into the application and then I'll start with showing you some of the basic setup options. Just to know that this home screen is effectively a quick summary of what's been going on in the system. So we've got events and job logs down here in the bottom left hand corner. We have schemas that have been defined in the top left, and we have data sets that have been defined in the top right. You also have a quick navigation here between business areas, and a business area could be anything. It could be the name of a system, it could be the name of a department, whatever it is that you care about. You also have this thing called a domain console, which is effectively a summary of all that's going on in the system, defining number of users, active business areas, and so on and so forth. You also have a relationships-based view, which gives you the ability to see the data in relation to other data that you have, and this is an expandable view. So right now I've only got a default business area, and I have a bunch of reference data sets or data domains effectively that I can leverage. So I'm going to go over to the configuration, and I'm going to create a business area, and I'm going to call this business area November 25 webinar. And I'm going to add myself as a user here, and I'm going to give myself full rights, although I could add other users and give them lesser rights, maybe view only. And then I'm also going to add a system connection. I've already defined a system using JDBC for Postgres, and I'm going to add that, and I'm going to save it. Now typically in the life cycle of work that would be performed, the first thing you would do is you would start setting up users and business areas, and maybe those business area data sets. So for example, I showed you visually that I had a bunch of data sets, data domains, and so these are all the data domains that I've got defined in the system. I also have the option to set up data classification tags. So there are a couple of different ways this can be done. So you can either add a tag manually, give it a default business area that it belongs to, give it a name, and give it a description. Or what you can do is you can create some using an AI tags generator. And so I'm going to choose my business area of the November 25th webinar. I'm going to ask it to create 10 tags for me, and I'm going to say that these tags relate to something custom, and I'm going to say create data tags for classifying customer data attributes for e-commerce for forename, surname, email address, personal email address, and phone number. Keep the tags under 20 characters in label length with no spaces in the label, and provide descriptive text to a maximum of 500 characters to describe the label. Include common variations and related terms as synonyms to help with search. And if I hit next, now what it'll do is it'll take the prompt that I provided there, and it will generate 10 tags, up to 10 tags, based on my request. And there you can see it's defined those tags with some elaborate descriptions, and I can just hit next now, and it will create these tags for me. Okay, and I can see those either as a card-based view for convenience, and then if I add these tags to different business areas, then of course they'll be relevant to that business area. If they're part of the default, then they become available to all the business areas. Okay, so now I've defined those tags. Now what I can do is I can switch my business area to the webinar, and I can go across to schemas, and a schema is nothing more than a data model, and I have several different ways that I can create these. So I could create a schema using a file as a template, or I could define the fields manually, or I could clone an existing schema that I have in the system, or I could get it from a system connection. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just define the fields manually, and I'm going to just call this my first schema. And I'm going to add a field here, and the first one is going to be first, and I'm going to call this my forename. It's going to be a string, it's going to be mandatory, it's going to be 35 characters in length. And then I'm going to add another one, which is going to be last, and this will be my surname, also a string, also mandatory, and also 35 characters in length. And I'll add another one, which will be pmail, and this will be my personal email. Going to be an email type, and it's also going to be mandatory, and even though an email address could be 320 characters in length, I'm going to limit it to 125. Now at this point I could actually go and manually put in classifiers against each of these attributes, but I don't need to do that because I can get it to auto tag them for me. And this is particularly useful if I've perhaps brought these fields in from a file import or from a JDBC connection. So, and you can see here that it's found suggestions for each of them, and I can just apply those, and you can see it's put forename, surname, and personal email against each of these. I could add another field, so this one's going to be private phone, and again phones could be using a phone type, or it could just be a string. If it's a phone type, we use international, the format needs to be in an international format, and again, in this case I'm going to say it's non-mandatory, and I can go and do an auto tag again, and it may find additional tags to apply, but it's more than likely it will just apply the additional tag that I was missing. and then I can save that. And so now I've defined my model. The next thing I can do is start adding data. And data is added via a mechanism called data sets. So I'm going to create a data set now, and I'm going to call this data set 1. And this is my first data set with entries made manually. And I'm just going to save that, and I'll come back to it. What I'll do in parallel is I'll create a second data set, and this is going to be called data set 2, and this will be data set 2 from a JDBC connect, from a Postgres database via JDBC. And I'm going to connect to a system, and I'm going to connect to my Postgres database, and I'm going to load this data from customer A. Yeah. And you can see I've got a whole bunch of fields there that I can choose from, but none of the fields automatically match up. So I'm just going to shift the data off to the right, and again I'm going to use AI in this case to do an auto mapping for me. And with some luck it will perfectly identify the fields that are most likely to be lined up. So you can see there that first is lined up with first name, last with last name, personal email lines up with email, and personal phone lines up with phone. And I can accept that as it is, or I could say, well, actually whenever I store email addresses, what I would rather we do is we do a quick formula on that, and we uppercase the email addresses so that they're always stored in uppercase. And this is just a choice that I'm making here, but I could have just accepted the data as it is and dealt with it later. So you can see there in the preview that it's going to uppercase the email address, and I might say, oh, that telephone number doesn't look quite right either. So this is a messy one. I either go back and change a phone number to a string, or I exclude this from being loaded, or I try to fix it in some way. So let's assume for the purposes of this exercise that all the data is coming from the same area code, or that I've got an area code as well, and what I'm missing in fact is the country code. Then again, what I could do here is I could use a formula, and I could use another Excel type formula, and I could say, okay, the country code is going to be +1 because it's all American data. I don't know what the area code is, so I'm going to put a 00 in there, and I'm going to append the email address, the phone number in here. Yep. And so there, that's what my phone number is going to look like, and I can just run a verify and upload at this point. So in the background, it's going to make a connection to that JDBC database, that Postgres database is going to bring all the records in, and now I'm going to go back to my schema. I'm not going to wait for the jobs to refresh. I'm going to go back to my schema, and I'm going to add a third data set. And this data set is going to be data that's going to be loaded via a file. So I'm going to call this data set 3. Data set 3. Data loaded from a file. In this case, a CSV. And I'll just load data from a file now. And again, similar problem to the one I had before. Columns don't really match up. Same principle applies. I use AI to do the mapping, and with some luck everything will line up and the data will be able to be loaded. So here you can see forename and first, last name and last, email ID and pmail, phone and pphone. And similarly here I might do the same. I might use a an upper to convert the email address to a all uppercase characters. And for the phone, actually I have a better phone in this case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a formula here, and again I'm going to concatenate, and I'm going to put a +1 in here and a space and the phone number. PH. Okay, and so that looks like a pretty good phone number, and again a verify and upload. So that's also going to process in the background. We're going to land on the jobs page. We'll see what the progress is on the JDBC connection. I think it's about 140 records. This file, I'm not sure how many records there were in it, but it doesn't really matter. We can see those jobs are staged. They're not necessarily running yet, but that's fine. So let's go back to our schema. Let's go back to dataset 1. Let's look at adding records manually, and in this case we'll test out the data validation in particular. So here I am on dataset 1, which has no records in it. You can see there my if you just caught a glimpse of that, you would have seen 5 records are already loaded from that file. So the default when you click on a dataset is it goes straight to view mode. If you have permissions, what you can do is you can go back, or you can explicitly choose from the menu to do an edit. So there you can see my 5 records have loaded so far. Here if I click on edit, what this will do is it'll take me into the data set, and this add button is now available for me to use. And so I could now add a John Smith here and an email address for John, and you can see it's already starting to check to see whether my entry is going to match up with what it's expecting. So if I just put John Smith in there, you can see it says it's not a valid email. It's not going to check the email for me because I don't have an integration for email checking, but it does check to see that the format is correct. And similarly with the phone number, if I want to put a phone number in here, the expectation right now is that it's going to be an international phone number format, 025551234, and then I can hit save. Okay, so I've created a record. That's how quick and easy it is to add a record. I can now add another record, and this one could be Jane Smith, and if I don't put a last name in, it'll give me an error, and I don't put a phone number in because it's not mandatory. And you can see here it gives me a warning, okay, you haven't provided one of the mandatory fields, do you still want to save it, yes or no? And of course I could say yes. And that might be a perfectly valid case because I may not have all the information I need. But what's very clear is that it's been saved with warnings, and I have a warning against that record. Of course I don't have a warning against phone number because phone number is not a mandatory field. If I have that information now, I can go back and edit it, or I could edit it at some later stage. Now the interesting thing is that when I did these, I didn't do them in uppercase, so I might want to go back now and change these. I'm going to leave them as they are. You'll see one of the challenges associated with that is that when we do exact matching on email addresses, for example, it's not going to see Jane.Smith in camel case is the same as Jane.Smith in all uppercase. But that's a separate problem. And the same with John Smith. If it's all lowercase, it's not going to see the camel case or the uppercase email addresses. So I've created those two records. Now if I wanted to ask Jane or John to verify their data, I would have the ability to now do a request verification, and I could request them to verify the data, or I could request them to also give consent. And they have a couple of options in here. So if I set these as being all values that I want them to check, then what they'll do is they'll validate that all of them are correct. Otherwise I can just filter and say, just can you verify your first name and last name, and what that'll do is that'll send them an email with a magic one-time use link, and then they can verify their data. Similarly, if I wanted to share this record with one of my colleagues, I could do that using a special link share, and again here I could give it with a couple of different limitations for a number of hours, minutes, or days or weeks, and I could give it to them read only and generate a link for it accordingly. Let's go and have a look and see what's happening with our jobs. Okay, so 5 records were created from the file upload, 140 records from the JDBC connection, and you can see there's a syndication job going on. This is a cross-tenant syndication. Don't worry about that right now, but effectively if you have more than one business unit connected to the system and not using a business area but using their own tenant, you can exchange data between the tenants that way. Let's go and have a look at our relationships map now, and you can see here that in my new business area that I've got created, I've got my first schema. There's my schema definition. I've got my data sets. You can see that I've got problem with at least one record in this data set. If I look inside these others, they all look pretty good. But what I don't know at this stage is whether there are any duplicates across any of these records. So I could go and run a search duplicates job, and with the small characteristics that I have, probably the most useful matching criteria is going to be an email address. So I'm going to do it just for the webinars business area, and just on the first schema, because that's the only one I have across all the data sets, and I'm going to search based on email address. And this doesn't use the column attributes, it uses the tags. So you can see here that I have personal email as one of my tags, and I'm just going to give this find all records with the same email address, and I just run that search. That'll take a couple of minutes, and once it's finished processing, what will happen is I will land up with groupings effectively based on email addresses. I don't know what I've got across these 3 data sets, my manually created, my file upload, and my JDBC connected data set, but it could be that even within those data sets themselves there are potentially duplicated records. So at any point I can run this, I can refresh it, and then I can come back to it and have a look. So what I'll do now is I'll go back to my schema, and I'll have a look inside dataset 2 and just see what we've got going on in there. I might find an interesting record that I want to clone. And so let's see. Okay, I've got John Doe, and let's see what, okay, John Doe 01 at example.com. Okay, so I'm going to copy John Doe, and I'm going to appropriate this record into my other data set. Okay, add a record, and I'm just going to call it JDO. And I'm just going to save that like that. So now I know for certain that I have a duplicate, but it's in a completely different data set. Let's go back to our search duplicate, see what's going on there. Doesn't look as though it found anything. 147 clusters found, so it didn't find any in that instance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it again. And in parallel, what I'm going to do is, whilst that's running, I'm just going to show you the search. So I could just type in John Smith, or I could just type in Smith. And what this will do is look across all the data sets, because I'm choosing business area, webinar, all schemas, all data sets. And you can see here that it's found 3 records. And if I look at these 3 records, it's found Jane Smith, Tom Smith, and John Smith. Okay, so that's pretty good. It's case insensitive. It's a pretty good find. I could mess it up a little bit here and have all kinds of things going on, and it would still find them because it's using a flexible search. I could also go and type an AI-based search, and I could say all people without phone numbers. And you can see here it's found it's found 2 records, but the query itself is going to be something like this. So at this point, what I could do is I could go over to the query builder, and I could ask the query builder to show me those results. And you can see there's Jane Smith, has no phone number. So 2 records, 2 records with without phone numbers, which kind of is consistent with what we saw in the data quality as well. You could just as easily get it to build you the query using the advanced query builder. And if I use that ask anything again, I get the same results. And I could go into the query builder and actually construct the query. So phone number is null, and I could add to this as I want to. And we're at 30 minutes. Let's have a look and see what we managed to find in the search duplicates. Okay, 148 records, 147 clusters, and if I go in and have a look at this, I find that there are the 3 and 2 records, and I can see that this John Doe doesn't have a telephone number. So what I can do is I can either choose to delete this record, or I could consolidate or merge the records. So why would you choose this as a platform? Well, I think it offers several key differentiators that set it apart. First is the federated architecture. This means the system can work with data wherever it lives, providing a unified view without requiring a massive and costly data migration project. Next, it focuses on real-time data governance capabilities. So the platform performs data validation and quality inspections as the data is entered. And this ensures that it's accurate from the start. No system's worth its salt and if it doesn't have a flexible search. But Pretectum goes a step further with both an AI-based natural language search and simple string searching capability as well. And that can also be converted into structured queries. This makes your data discovery easy and intuitive. And in terms of other differentiators, it's important to understand that there's some truly distinctive features, such as support for customer self-service, so customers can do validation of their own data, and this empowers them to directly contribute to the accuracy of your data as a whole. And then it also supports flexible data definition. So this means that whatever the data is that you're bringing in, if it has slightly different characteristics from dataset to dataset, you can bring it all in with those characteristics. And then finally, data quality is a focus. When you define your data models effectively in the product, you can then also get clear insight as soon as you add that data as to whether the data is matching up with your rules as defined around that data.
Thanks to Clinton for that insightful show and tell of the potentials of Pretectum CMDM for small, medium, and large organizations. Hopefully you managed to get just a taste of the opportunity to improve data quality and raise the game on consumer data profile management. If you're interested in a free trial, be sure to visit pretectum.com. Thank you for your attention, and please come back for more as we explore more opportunities for you to make your customer data better.